Good morning. So before we go back to the Gemara, which is what we're holding, after having finished our Orchatz and Karpas discussion, and the whole question of the Hadama and its extension to the Marar, and then we learned Rabbi Sagoda about that. We're holding out the next section of the Gemara, which is the question of swallowing matzah and Marar without chewing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to learn about that in a minute. But before we go there, I was remiss just to learn two passages in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in chapter 475. So I have the papers there. It's halacha 1 and 2, Aleph and Beis. There's quick, short halachas, but it's important to round up the picture because we discussed at length the question of the bracha of Hadama said over the karpas to extend to the marar. We spoke about that at length. But there's another component that the Gemara spoke about that we didn't get to the halacha in, which we should have. I was remiss to do so, which is the question of the washing done by Orchatz and why that doesn't extend to the washing at the matzah at Rachza. Why do you have to wash twice? That's something we were remiss to discuss, and I want to do that presently. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll go to the Gemara. So this is chapter 475 in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and it's the laws of the rest of the Seder, which means it starts from Rachza to the end. That's what these halachas start with. Rachza till the end. So Aleph, Af al pi shenatal yadav, even though he already washed his hands, l'tzorech tibla yirakos, because he's required to dip into vegetables, right? We learned that in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch gives his background. So he starts off with you have to dip, and because you have to dip, therefore you have to wash before. So you already did that. Apple became nonetheless. He must now wash again. And make the bracha al natilas yadayim. So when he made the bracha, when he washed his hands for the dipping of the karpas, he did not make a bracha because we're in doubt as to whether or not it's a requirement or not, right? All right. I'm going to share with you something from the Rebbe in a moment. But again, when we washed our hands before karpas, we did not make a bracha because there's a dispute as to whether or not washing before wet vegetables is b'chlal a mitzvah, right? We had a dispute between Tosfos and the others. The others are of the view that washing your hand before you eat a wet vegetable is of the same rabbinic mitzvah to wash before you eat bread, whereas Tosfos is of the view that washing your hands before you have a dipped vegetable is simply hygienic. We spoke about this on Friday night. Yes. So because there's a dispute, and therefore we're in doubt as to whether washing your hands before you dip is a mitzvah or not, and therefore you avoid making the bracha, right? But here you're washing now for the sake of eating bread, or in this case, poor man's bread, which would be matzah. Therefore, you wash your hands with a bracha. Yeah? And this is achar gmar haggadah v'halal, after having recited the Haggadah in Magid, and half of halal, which is in the end of Magid. So in other words, you finish what we refer to as Magid, but Magid is Haggadah and half of Magid, and half of halal. So why are you washing again? Because our Gemara told us, because during the time of the recitation of the Haggadah and Halal, his mind has been distracted from guarding his hands. Right? So let's look at footnote number 2. Yeah, you see it? Well, actually, let's finish the paragraph first. And therefore, because he wasn't careful to guard his hands throughout the time of the recitation of Haggadah and half of Halal, and therefore he may have touched an area of the body which is not perfectly clean, and therefore he would have to wash again. Shayadai Maskani is saying, because our hands, as a rule, is a halachic principle that our hands are to be considered busy. And unless we're conscious of keeping our hands clean, our hands touch things they're not supposed to. Okay, so let's look at footnote 2 and 3 and 4. But even before that, let's make it clear. When it comes to the bracha of Hadama, there was a dispute as to whether halal and haggadah is considered an interruption. Right? When it came to the bracha of Adama, there was a dispute. Maybe the bracha of Adama over karpas extends to Lamara because halal and haggadah are not considered an interruption. Or maybe it doesn't extend because it is considered an interruption. And the bracha of Adama over Mara is covered by the matzah according to that second opinion, right? Which is why we ended up eating less than a kazayas to satisfy all views and never get into the problem of having to make a bracha achrona after the karpas. But when it comes to washing the hands, we hear the extension is not such a question of my intention. It's a question of whether I can guard my hands. There's more to it. When it comes to the bracha issue of hadama, it's a question of does my intention extend? Or do I consider this interruption in my meal? When it comes to the washing of the hands, it's not a question of whether halal is considered an interruption or not. It's a question of whether I am capable of guarding my hands or not. And with all that's going on, there's a high likelihood I didn't guard my hands. I scratched my head. And therefore I have to wash again for Ratzah. This is basically from the Gemara, actually, from our Gemara. Yeah, okay, so now let's look at footnote 2, 3. Footnote 2, 3, 4. 1 second. Maybe we'll look at 1, 2. What does he say here in 1? Interesting. Okay. Okay, it's not so important. Yeah. We'll leave it alone for now. Although we discussed it a bit last night when we talked about Kodesh because of when Kodesh is to be eaten. Okay, let's go to footnote 2, 3, and 4. So number 2. Psachim, this is our Gemara Psachim, 115b. See also section 178.7, which is the laws of washing hands, where there the Alter Rebbe rules that when during a meal a person diverts his attention from keeping his hands clean, he is obligated to ritually wash them again, even though he intended to continue eating. In that source, to exemplify this concept, the Alter Rebbe specifically mentions washing at the Seder as an example of where you would wash it twice. See also section 473.4, where this point is mentioned, which I believe that we learned. 473.4, I believe we learned that already. If we didn't. 1 second, it's my computer is loading a little slow. I don't know why it's not showing. Okay, let's go weiter. Footnote 3. Sorry, footnote 4. See section 164.2, where the Alter Rebbe writes that if a person touches a place of filth during a meal, he's obligated to wash his hands. Again, in many places, the Alter Rebbe mentions the concern that since a person's hands are active, that's the halachic principality, he may inadvertently touch a place of filth, which can include scratching your head, going to the bathroom for that matter. Okay. Halacha beis, and then we'll go to the Gemara. Okay, what I want to tell you something about. Oh, we learned this already. You remember we learned in the Rebbe's Haggadah, the Rebbe wrote, based on a Chak Yaakov, that we spoke about this on Shabbos, Friday night as well, in Shul, that if one does not usually wash their hands year round, right? The Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch said, why are we washing our hands before karpas? Because you have to dip. And when you dip, you're required to wash all year round. But the Rebbe cited to a Chak Yaakov, the Rebbe first cited to that idea, and the Rebbe added that if you're the kind of person who never washes year round, because you're relying on the view of Tosfos that you don't have to wash your hands before you dip vegetables, it's only a question of hygienics. Nonetheless, you should still go ahead with washing your hands before the karpas at Orchatz, because this will be one of those things that will raise curiosity from the children. right? Which means you have two reasons to wash your hands for orchatz. One, as per the halacha, to wash your hands before you dip the vegetable. B, as a way of invoking questions from the children. So from perspective B, that you're washing your hands, because if you're following the Rebbe's view, which is that if all year round you don't wash your hands before you have a wet vegetable, because you're relying on Taisha who says you don't have to. And the reason you're doing it tonight is because you want to raise curiosity as per the Chak Yaakov. Then that would be the reason why you have to wash the second time at Rachza. Because the first time wasn't for mitzvah b'chlal. And now when you're washing for Rachza, you're washing for the mitzvah, washing your hands before you have bread, matzah. Whereas the Shulchan Aruch, which only mentions the reason for orchatz, because you're required to halachically, then the second washing is because your hands are busy and it doesn't cover from the first to the second. But this pshat is probably wrong, what I just said. And the reason why it's probably wrong is because our Gemara says straight up, the reason why you gotta wash again at Ratzah is because your hands are busy and you haven't covered from the first washing. Which would mean like this. In theory, we'll see in a minute, if in theory you did guard your hands and you made sure your hands were not touching anything wrong, and you washed before karpas because you wanted to raise curiosity from the children. But at the end of the day, you still don't have to wash again at Ratzah. Because at the end, you did do the washing. Even though your intention was to raise curiosity, because you were following that second view, which doesn't wash all year round, but nonetheless, you still did wash. And if you guarded your hands, that would extend to your Ratzah. And I have to say that because that's what the Gemara says. The Chak Yaakov cannot undermine the Gemara. Because the Gemara says, why are you washing a second time at Ratzah? Because your hands are busy and they may have touched something dirty, right? We learned this. This is the Gemara in Kuf Vav. Sorry. Washing your hands the second time, why do you need to? You already washed your hand once. We say, because you have to say Haggadah and Halal, you may have distracted your attention, and you touch something you're not supposed to. So the Gemara says that. The Gemara says you're washing twice because you may have distracted your attention. The Chak Yaakov cannot come and say, oh, you know why you're washing twice? Once to raise curiosity and another time to wash for challah, for matzah. The Chak Yaakov cannot say that. Neither can the Rebbe say that. If the Haggadah said the reason why you're washing twice is because you may have diverted your attention. You follow what I'm saying? Which means, I have to say like this. Even, let's say, so if I follow the Chak Yaakov, which is second option, the Rebbe's Haggadah, which is that usually I don't wash my hands. I'm washing now at orchatz to raise curiosity. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, that curiosity washing, if I had my attention straight and I didn't touch anything else, will still cover my obligation for washing before bread. Because at the end of the day, I did wash, even if my intention was for raising curiosity. And the curiosity will still have been achieved because I washed earlier before I did. This is how we'd have to understand the Gemara based on that reading that we spoke about Friday night. Is that clear? Okay, let's go back there in the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah? Is that clear or not so much? Okay. Base. Okay, yeah.
Not saying bracha.
The first time?
You're in doubt whether you say a bracha, but there's no doubt about whether you could say you say a bracha before you eat bread.
Correct.
So I was thinking,
No. I was thinking of this also, yeah.
How could you bypass the mitzvah of saying a bracha for motzi?
You would by Ratzah. You're making a bracha tonight. I thought you were gonna ask something else. By the second washing Ratzah, you are making it till Sedayim because you're right. Because
you are.
By Ratzah, yes, not by Orchatz. Orchatz is before Karpas. Ratzah is before Motzi.
I thought you weren't.
By Orchatz, you're not.
No, I know that, but I thought you said, but some are arguing that you wouldn't say it during motzi.
You would always say it by Motzi.
Yeah, always.
The question is,
What's the question?
the question is like this: why should I wash at Ratzah at all if I already did it at Orchatz?
Oh, why should you wash?
Yes, I've already fulfilled my obligation.
But
To which-
say,
Yeah, I know. Continue.
no, you say that it's the time.
When?
Before you
Why not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We do make a bracha by rachza. But let's just remember something. Making a bracha does not make or break the mitzvah. The mitzvah is done even if you don't make a bracha. The bracha is a rabbinic enactment to say thank you for the mitzvah. But the mitzvah is done if you don't. If a person put on tefillin and forgot to make a bracha, he still did the mitzvah. Right? Same thing with the Tzilas Yadayim. The mitzvah is done even if you didn't have a bracha. Right? So.
Right, but you can't bypass that unless there's a doubt, right?
Correct. So when you washed the first time by orchatz, there was a doubt.
Right. There.
But by orchatz, making a bracha for sure. I thought you were going to ask something else, which is like this. Based on what I just finished saying. Now let's go through this again. Why aren't you making a bracha by orchatz? Because there's a doubt to the mitzvah. So when you wash at orchatz, no doubt, you make a bracha. Yeah? Why am I washing a second time at all? Because of the distraction, I touched something that's incorrect. Okay, so that's all settled there. I washed the first time, no bracha because doubt. I wash the second time with a bracha because there's no doubt for the obligation. And the reason why I'm washing a second time at all is because might have been distracted attention. That's the Gemara statement. Okay, but then I introduced from the Rebbe's Agada based on the Chot Yaakov that there's actually another reason why you might be washing the first time at orchatz. Okay. Not because of a doubt, but because you are a Tosis man, and therefore you never wash year round. You're washing now to raise curiosity, and that's why I'm not making a bracha. Because not a mitzvah b'chlal. It's just a curiosity raising. It's not the mitzvah of washing.
So then,
the bracha of the Tzilas Yadayim is to thank Hashem for the mitzvah of the Tzilas Yadayim. I'm not doing a mitzvah now. I'm just raising curiosity.
So then that whole discussion about interruption doesn't apply.
Seemingly, that's what I was suggesting. But I'm saying that's what the last thing I was saying was you can't say that because the Gemara says the reason why you're washing a second time is because you may have distracted attention from the first washing.
That's one. That's
yes, but
that's one avenue.
1 second. But the other avenue which said, yes, you're right, there's one avenue. But the other avenue which says the reason why you're washing the first time is to raise curiosity, that's an avenue that emerges way after the Gemara. So cannot ignore the Gemara's fact that the reason you're washing a second time is because you may have distracted attention.
Can't negate.
You can't negate. You can't negate it. Which means, therefore, I have to learn that if I'm washing the first time by orchatz, not because I'm in doubt, but because I'm a Tosfos man, like Chot Yaakov says, like the Rebbe says in the second option, Nagada, that the reason I'm washing now before orchatz is to raise kids' curiosity. If I was protective of my attention and didn't touch anything, I wouldn't be exempt from washing ratzah. Even though the first time I washed wasn't for the mitzvah, it was for the sake of curiosity. Because I kept my attention and did not touch anything incorrect, I would not have to wash my ratzah. Yes, but even if I'm going with the reason why I washed the first time was for curiosity's sake, okay. Because again,
so is that the novelty?
That's what I'm offering here. We have to say this. This is a suggestion I'm saying, and I have to say this because I have to reconcile the second option of washing for the sake of curiosity with the Gemara statement that the reason why I'm washing a second time is because of interruption. Meaning, even if the only reason I'm washing is for curiosity's sake, my second washing is not because of the mitzvah, because the first one wasn't. Because the first one, which was for curiosity, could still be for the mitzvah of ratzah.
In other words, you're saying that
because the Gemara still sustains.
Is not necessary for the second washing.
Intention is not necessary for any washing. Why is that? Because we learned that when we say mitzvahs require intentionality, it's only for biblical mitzvahs. Rabbinic mitzvahs don't require intentionality at all. So if I washed my hands for round one for the sake of curiosity, then if I guarded my hands, I wouldn't have to wash a second time. So this...
But that's biblical.
Because that's rabbinic.
Not the washing.
Washing is rabbinic. The whole washing is a rabbinic mitzvah. The Tzilas Yadayim is a rabbinic mitzvah.
Sorry. So therefore you don't need intention.
If I don't need intention. And therefore, even if my first time around I wash my hands for the sake of curiosity, because I'm a Tosfos man, and I don't believe that there's a mitzvah at all to wash hands.
And you were careful.
And I was careful not to touch anything.
You don't have to wash.
I don't have to wash my ratzah.
Intentionality doesn't matter.
Intentionality doesn't matter. Even though first time around I only washed for the sake of curiosity. Which means, in other words, what I'm saying is like this. These halachas here, which is based in our Gemara, which says you have to wash a second time because you may have diverted your attention from your hands, would still apply even if I'm washed the first time for the sake of curiosity. And not just for the sake of doubt as to whether there's a mitzvah to wash. We have to conclude this because rabbinical, if you don't need intention. But the reason why I'm compelled to conclude this whole thing is because the Gemara says so. The Gemara says you're washing a second time because you may have diverted your attention. The Rebbe and Chok Yaakov cannot ignore the Gemara. So therefore, even if you follow that view, which is I'm washing the first time for the sake of curiosity, in theory, that curiosity washing could extend to my bread, if not for the fact that the Gemara tells us you diverted your attention and you may have touched something incorrectly. This is my little concoction. Thank you. So to add another thing, what if at the outset I wash my hands for the sake of curiosity, knowing that I'm going to keep my attention and not touch anything incorrectly, and I want it to extend to my rochza, then seemingly when I wash at urchatz, I should make a bracha. Even though I'm doing it now for the sake of curiosity, because I'm not going to eat in a while. I'm trying to backpedaling it. Exactly. So if I'm washing now for the sake of curiosity, but I know I'm going to exactly, but I know I'm not going to touch anything that I'm not supposed to. So I know it's going to extend to my rachza. So I have to make a bracha now. Will I still have fulfilled the issue of curiosity? I would argue yes, because you washed significantly earlier than the matzah, which will raise curiosity in the children anyway.
With the intent that you're going to use that bracha for your.
That's correct. So I'm washing my hands now for the sake of curiosity, but simultaneously having in mind that I'm going to cover my matzah washing and therefore guard my hands from touching anything else. Let's say I put gloves on. So then I would make a bracha now, even though my whole washing is for the sake of curiosity.
There's a danger there that you may slip up and.
That's not recommended practice. It's hypothetical. Not recommended. Recommended is to follow the Haggadah. But yes, hypothetical. This is a little thought, maybe. Okay, this is something I was thinking about. Again, the floor is open to disagree, but you see why I'm compelled to say what I said.
I just see the pitfall. I think.
Oh, I'm not suggesting to practice this way at all.
I think you're right. No, this is just academic.
Yeah.
I think you're right. You could do that. It's just that the pitfall. Even though, however great your intention may be to keep your hands clean, it's just human nature that you'll divert your attention.
That's right.
And you always have to factor in that possibility.
That's correct.
Because it's
not what the Gemara says.
It's not a possibility. It's more.
It's a likelihood. Correct. It's correct.
Happen. So you're just setting yourself
correct.
Up into a problem
with
your bracha.
That's right. So skipping washing second time is only post factum if you know as a matter of fact you didn't touch anything.
Right.
But not for intentionality to begin with.
Right.
But I'm just making a theoretical argument.
In the future.
I'm making it correct. I'm making a theoretical argument though.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so let's see Bays, which will round the second halacha, which will round up everything we just said. Now, va'afim b'shas amiris haggadah v'hala lo yisir taita mishmiras yadav. Right? Now, let's say during the halal and haggadah, it's post factum, and I know that I guarded my hands well. Nonetheless, you still have to wash again for the meal, but this time b'lei bracha, without a bracha. Because maybe you were covered by the first washing. So this guy would never make a bracha. He didn't make a bracha the first time because at that time, either A, he was doing it for curiosity, or B, he was doing it out of doubt and therefore didn't make a bracha. And now it so happens half an hour later after Magid and Halal, he knows as a matter of fact he didn't touch anything he wasn't supposed to, which means in theory he doesn't have to wash again. But he still washes again. But this time without a bracha. It means he never made a bracha. But the first time he didn't because he didn't know he was going to be keeping his intention the whole time. Why is that? Let's see. And we'll see where I got my idea from. Because when he washed his hand for the sake of dipping the vegetable, he did not have in mind that this washing should cover the meal, should cover the hamotzi. See it again?
Well, that sounds like you need intentionality.
Oh no, you need intentionality for it to extend to half an hour later. Right? Let's see. Anyone who not washes his hand for the sake of dipping, this washing will not cover eating bread, unless he had in mind at the time of washing it, this is going to go for bread also. Which means if I did have in mind that I was going to go for bread, it would cover. right?
Yeah.
That's what he says. If when he washes his hand by orchatz for the sake of dipping, he had in mind that this washing now is going to extend to my washing for Mahamoitzi. And he did so. Now, why? Either because maybe there's an obligation to wash when you have dipping, or maybe because he's doing it for curiosity's sake. But either way, he had in mind that this washing is going to go to Hamoitzi. And so does Lazlo to Suda. Therefore, he does not have to wash again at the meal. Doesn't have to wash again by bread. If at the time of saying the Halal and Agadah, he was particular to make sure his hands didn't touch it, wasn't supposed to. This is the hypothetical I was giving you earlier. Right?
My only question is,
And I'm suggesting this Alter is straight up. What I'm suggesting is that all this applies, even if your intention the first time was for the sake of curiosity. And the curiosity would still be satisfied if you did this. Because usually I wash.
You have multiple intentions.
Yes, correct. But the curiosity is satisfied because ordinarily I wash before I eat bread. Here I'm washing a half an hour before I eat bread. So it's still sufficient to get the kid's curiosity. It doesn't have to be a second time to get curiosity. It just has to be in an abnormal fashion. And by the fact that I'm washing before I dip, even though my intention is I'm making a bracha so that I can cover for the later time, whatever, and I'm going to guard my hand, let's say, right? But nonetheless, the intentionality of raising curiosity is still satisfied. L'chora. This is what I'm suggesting. I'm doing all of this because I want our Gemara, or not because I want, because our Gemara must jive with that, with no matter what reason you apply from the from the recent generation halacha commentaries as to why you're washing the first time, you still must apply the standard of our Gemara, which says wash the second time because there may be an interruption. Which means in theory that first washing can extend to the second washing, even if it's only for curiosity's sake. And that's basically what I think.
Provided you had the intent.
Provided you had the intention. Well, if I didn't have the intention.
I said before that you don't need intent for rabbinic.
You don't need intention for a rabbinic mitzvah.
Right.
But if you're washing with the intention of the sake of dipping, then in order for it to extend to bread, you have to have in mind. We'll have to look up the halachas in chapter 164.
But I just want to make.
Let's look at footnote 5. It's there.
164.
Footnote 5. So here the Alter Rebbe said that when you wash your hands for the sake of dipping, if you wanted to cover also bread, you must have in mind. Yeah? Right? Again, if you washed your hands for the sake of dipping, and you want that washing to extend to bread, you must have in mind.
Must have in mind.
Yes. Right, which is why if you guarded your hands, you have to wash again without a bracha at rachza, even though you guarded your hands, because you didn't have intention at the dipping washing. But if you did, then it goes for the other way. Then it extends, yeah? Let's look at footnote 5. Let's see if that works with everything we just said about the other intentionality, which is the curiosity intentionality. Okay, yeah? In that source, Dr. explains the rationale for this ruling. Quote, according to the authorities who maintain that, in the present era, one is not at all required to wash his hands before partaking of food that is dipped in liquid, Tosfos' view. The washing is as if he originally washed his hands for the sake of hygienics, cleanliness alone, and not for the sake of mitzvah of washing. For one must wash his hands with the intent that washing them makes them fit to eat with. So even though I don't have to have intention during my washing them fulfilling a mitzvah because it's rabbinic, but I still have to have intention that I'm washing in such a manner that is satisfied halachically for eating afterwards. So even though mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana, even though mitzvahs darabanan, rabbinic mitzvahs don't require intention that, hey, I'm now fulfilling a mitzvah, but when it comes to washing your hands ritually in order to eat bread, I have to be cognizant, not cognizant, in other words, the issue here is not intention. The issue here is making sure I'm following the protocol of washing in such a way that it satisfies the halacha, which is get every single inch of my finger, washing twice, what Arvi at a time. Because hygienic cleansing doesn't need all that stuff. So I don't think it's a question of kavanas mitzvahs. You have to have intention in fulfilling a mitzvah so much as be aware of the halachas that are required to satisfy the halacha to wash before you eat.
Was it,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Let me see, make sure I get it right.
Was it practiced then the way it is today? Whereas, in other words, when you're washing for hygienics, spiritually speaking.
No, no, he means cleanliness literally. Oh, you mean ritual washing?
Ritual washing.
Yeah.
There's two types, right? There's alternation and there's consecutiveness.
Okay,
When
that's
you do bread, you do consecutive. When you're doing for, let's say, karpas, you're not doing.
you're also doing 1 to 3, 1 to 3.
You are.
Yes, the dipping washing and the bread washing is the exact same washing.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Okay, let's look at this Kufnun Ches here very quickly. Kufnun Ches Halacha Gimel. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let's make sure I got it right. Again, the rule is that when it comes to rabbinic mitzvahs, you don't have to have intention for like a mitzvah. You just have to have.
I think the confusion is when you say you don't need a intent when you're doing a rabbinic mitzvah. There's first the intention for the karpas, and then there's intention for the bread. There's two separate intentions.
Okay, so that's not so clear. Say again. Yeah.
When we're saying about there's no for a rabbinic mitzvah.
Mitzvahs
no intent, right?
There's no intent required.
But we're trying to expand that to the bread.
Well, bread is rabbinic. Again, all Netilas Yadayim is rabbinic. There is no biblical Netilas Yadayim today.
We're speaking primarily with karpa.
Yes, but
one intent, and then there's
okay.
Intent,
So let me rephrase it. If I'm washing for the sake of
for the karpas, let's say.
Forget the Seder night. I'm washing for the sake of a pickle. Because I want to follow that view which says you have to wash before you eat anything wet. So I'm washing for the pickle. And then I decide, you know what, let me have a slice of bread. We'll have to wash again. Why have to wash again?
Because your hand was wet with the
nothing to do.
No?
Well, you were saying it's because you have to make sure that the act upon which you're washing has to be in consistency with bread washing.
That's what I'm saying. But it's not 100% clear. And the reason I'm saying this is because, as a rule, rabbinic mitzvah. Let me put it this way: there are two. Let's just take mitzvah tefillin for a second. Tefillin, yeah. I have to be aware, first of all, that I'm fulfilling the halachas of putting my tefillin in the right spot, on the arm. I'm tightening it correctly, right? Then there's the question of the fact that I have to be cognizant of the fact that I'm now fulfilling a mitzvah. So when we say mitzvahs require intentionality, the meaning of that is you have to be aware you're fulfilling a mitzvah now. Do I have to have that awareness when I wash my hands from Netilas Yadayim? It's a rabbinic mitzvah. Do I have to be aware I'm now fulfilling a rabbinic mitzvah, washing my hands?
That part, no, I would say.
That part, no. But which part, yes?
The part about how you perform.
Oh, the part about how I perform, then I have to.
So there's two different things going on here. Intentionality and
so how does Rabbi say it here? How does Rabbi say it here? The Netilas Yadayim tzricha kavana l'shem nitila hamachsheres la'achila. Netilas Yadayim requires intentionality that it be done in such a washing that allows me to eat. Not that he says you have to have the intention that you're doing the mitzvah, but you have to have the intention that you're doing it in such a fashion that it's going to allow you to eat halachically.
That's the nuance.
There we go. That's right.
So when you're washing for the vegetable, you may not have that.
Oh, there we go. That's why I have to wash again. That's why I have to wash again the second time around. Because according to the opinions that say that when you wash for a vegetable, it's simply for hygienics, right? From that perspective, it's not feasible to say that you also washed with such scrupulousness that you did it in such a fashion that allows you to eat. And if you have to wash again.
So, yeah.
But without a bracha.
You don't need intentionality, quote unquote, but you do need enough.
Exactly. and which is why I'm not doing.
Awareness of the mitzvah
That's
that
right.
you want to connect.
Which is why second time around I'm not doing it with a bracha, because the first time around I technically did it, and therefore maybe I'm exempt. And therefore I cannot make another bracha.
Oh wait, when
If I ate a pickle, I wash my hands before the pickle, and then I decide to have bread, I wash again before the bread without a bracha. Why without a bracha? If the first time around didn't count, why am I not making a bracha? Well, because maybe it did count. Because I washed properly. Right? It's only that, according to the opinions that say you're not supposed to wash or you don't need to wash before the pickle, we cannot rely on the fact that you had enough intention to wash properly for eating. And if we wash again, but without a bracha, because maybe you did do it. Right? So now back to the Seder night. If I washed the first time around before karpas, everything I said till now was when I washed the first time around for karpas, because I want to follow that opinion which says you have to wash before dip vegetable, before pickle. Yeah, that's how I wash for karpas. But now what if I'm going the other opinion in the Rebbe's Haggadah? I'm washing the first time around for the sake of curiosity. And in order to invoke curiosity, I watched ritually. So I did the act. Do I wash again a second time at Rachza if I knew I didn't touch anything I wasn't supposed to? Yes, is that a bracha? What if I had in mind at the time of washing for the sake of curiosity before the dip vegetable that this washing is going to cover the Rachza too? Then it works. Why not? The same way it works if my intention of washing the first time was because I wanted to fulfill the halacha which says you have to wash before pickle. Why shouldn't it? Yeah, clear?
You wash without you.
I washed at the first time around?
Of course, first time. Second.
Oh, but what first time around I actually had in mind? I actually had in mind.
And performed it.
And I performed it properly because I knew my washing first time around, which I'm doing now for the sake of curiosity, is also going to cover my obligation to wash before I eat on Moitzi. So I had in mind.
Do you wash?
Do I wash a second time? The answer would be no. If I knew that I didn't touch anything. Oh, but to your point, let's conclude with this. But what?
A person be 100% certain that his attention is not there.
Let's say put gloves on. So he knew he's not touching anything he's not supposed to. Or he was completely cognizant the whole time. Like hypothetical. But to your point, let's look at the last line of halacha beis. We come nonetheless. In the first instance, don't do that. Bad idea. Because you might very much distract your attention. As explained in chapter 164, footnote 6, and that's just out there states that there are authorities who maintain that ritually washing one's hand with stipulation that the washing will be effective on a later time is only valid in a pressing situation. Because you're like intentionally washing a half an hour early? Don't do that. Bad idea. You're setting yourself up for all kinds of disasters.
Because also when
So if you need to, then do it.
This is a funny thing, but how does a person really know that they never diverted their attention? Because by definition, diverting attention, you're not cognizant that you had diverted your attention.
So in that section of 164, out there, it's two chapters, the two sections of halacha. But over there, it's saying that in theory, a person could wash his hands in the morning, and he's saying, I'm doing this now to cover all the washing I need to do today. So all the meals I have, all the pickles I eat today. But I have to do so with this extreme cognizance that the whole entire day I'm not touching anything I'm not supposed to.
He could never affirm that he never touched anything he's not supposed to.
Which means
the moment he did it, he wasn't
okay. Which is why it's totally not recommended. But hypothetically, it's hypothetical.
Hypothetically.
Yeah. Anyway, this whole exercise was just to make the point that these halachas, which are based on our Gemara, must also jive with the Bach Yaakov / second version of the Rebbe's Haggadah, which says the reason why I'm watching the first time is to raise curiosity. It has to jive with that too, because that opinion cannot ignore our Gemara.
I think it was.
That's what I'm suggesting. That's the whole point I'm giving here.
Resolved with that issue that rabbinic mitzvahs don't require intent, but it do require.
They require your focus that you're doing it right.
Which the mitzvah needs to be performed.
That's right. Exactly right. which is why you have to wash again without bracha. Because hey, maybe you did do it. Because you probably did do it technically.
And that's the doubt, right?
And there's doubt, and therefore no bracha.
No bracha.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so we'll do tomorrow the swallowing matzah halacha. It's a nice fun total. Thank you for walking through with me.
I know you're keeping that at the very end because that's what we're all interested to find out.
What?
How you do this, the eating of the matzah without.
Oh, no, I'm not purposely. Just
No, I know.
Anyway,
So,
this was something yesterday I was learning this. I thought of this whole discussion, and I want to share it with you.
very good.
Okay. I'm still developing in my head, and if it goes well, maybe I'll write it up. But
Yeah, no, definitely.
if someone has a response or what's it called, a refutation, feel free to share, please.
That's when you
Have a good
eat
day.
matzah.